Hello, everybody. I'm Jake.
I'm Hannah. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Why Did This Book Turn Into Sucking on Jordan Peterson?
Jordan.
It's
Because you can't be in a top lobster's space without suckling him, or his brain will turn into mush.
it's almost like Dave Rubin specifically wrote this book knowing our next book review was going to be the new Jordan
I
Peterson
know,
book.
right?
So he decided to transition us into it. It's very thoughtful of
For a
him.
man against transitioning, he sure is good at it and taking a long time to do it.
Hey, he's not against transitioning. He's just going to compare me to a fucking Autobot during it. Okay,
I
remember
think it
that
was a
chapter?
Decepticon specifically. It was the one that
That's
turns into a
fair.
record player or the
That's
tape
fair.
player.
Soundwave.
That's a Decepticon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they were using old media. The cool Autobot was a CD player, specifically a 35-second no skip green off-brand Walkman CD player. So
He was a boombox.
you're a boombox.
He was a tape deck.
You're a boombox. You're literally a boombox.
That's the noise Transformers make.
That's I thought you were making the noise of a boombox since
No.
that's what you had just described, and I was like,
That, in
I think
fairness,
you're too young for boomboxes, maybe, and you just never experienced them. I don't.
it's also just the noise trans people make when no one else is around. True
When
story.
that's the transition sound.
Yep. I
Your
take
pieces
my
are
estrogen
moving.
in the morning and I. Okay, let's talk about this stupid fucking chapter.
So the stupid fucking chapter is called "Admit That We Need Religious Stories." And
Wasn't
he
Dave
doesn't
Rubin-
mean religious though.
He means Christian. He means Christian.
Specifically Christian, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what he talks about in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And he also talks about him getting diarrhea on Mount Sinai, which is
Yeah.
certainly a story.
We've all been there. Which is exactly where we'll begin. So Dave Rubin had diarrhea on Mount Sinai. That's the story. And he talks about I don't know what drove this man to decide that he had a future in comedy.
I don't either.
Like, did he have really reaffirming like parents, or was there like a friend involved that was like should have said no more often? Because this man wrote, If Moses saw a burning bush, I was suffering from a burning butt." That doesn't even make syntax sense. If Moses saw a burning bush, I was suffering from a burning butt. You need Moses to have witnessed bush for you to have burning butt. Just say Moses came all the way up here and saw a burning bush, but my spiritual experience was limited to volcano ass or something. Like, you could make that funny. You could make it funny. A poop joke can be funny. This isn't it. He didn't set it up right.
Dave Rubin's jokes in this book all have the same rhythm, and I don't want to get into the next chapter until the next episode.
Shitty Seinfeld.
As an example, here's another one, and you'll sort of get the rhythm of how these jokes worked. The chapter's entitled "Embrace Parenthood," and it starts, "No, I'm not talking about the Steve Martin movie from 1989, Parenthood, though between peak Steve Martin, a young Keanu Reeves, and a vibrator scene in Diane Weist, it's absolutely worth the $3.99 rental."
I hate him.
It's like it's like he thinks it's charming to sort of like be in the middle of a statement about something and then to sort of
He thinks it's
what's the word? Ingratiate himself to you by being a normal. I don't know. Like, you've seen the movie Parenthood, am I right, Steve Martin? The internet likes Keanu Reeves now for some reason.
But if you do something like that, the joke has to be either that you have obscure Steve Martin knowledge,
Sure,
or that in spite of his sexuality, he liked the vibrator scene for some reason. Like, maybe make a joke about how, and this was my sexual awakening when I found out that this grossed me out, or something like that. Like, I don't know. Like, there's something there that could be a joke, and I think he recognizes that there's a joke that exists to be told about these subjects, but he doesn't know what it is.
He vaguely gestures in the direction of a joke and expects you to
Yeah,
laugh.
and he goes, see, that's the. It's like pointing at a circus and going like, all right, that'll be $5 each for admission. And you're like, Dave, I'm not in the circus. Anyway, so he talks about having to shit because he ate pigeon or something in Cairo, whatever. So it was hot. They go and do that, and then he just moves on. And he's talking about like how he was searching for while in Israel and doing all these other things, he was searching for some sort of religious experience, and wouldn't luck have it that not going to the Dome of the Rock, not going to the Wailing Wall, not going to the site of Jesus's crucifixion. No. The holiest experience
he did in Jerusalem.
Right.
By
The
way.
holiest experience that he has is, and I'm not kidding, he literally writes, it was Jordan Peterson. Amazingly, visiting the most ancient holy sites didn't do the trick, but spending a year with Jordan did just that. Dave, you need to stand outside this man's bedroom with a boombox and you gotta shoot your shot, my friend. This is sad. I have never seen a more unrequited love story. Have you seen Love Actually with the posters? You should. First of all, Love Actually is a really great movie, and you should watch it. It's actually really fun. It's a cute movie, and the guy, Rick from Walking Dead, quarrel, but before his son ran away or whatever, he was holding up posters for Keira Knightley, and she was like, "Oh, that's really nice." That's my Keira Knightley impression.
That's your okay.
Yeah, that's her impression of herself as well. So I nailed it. And he's like, "You're my world" or whatever. It's cute. We need to figure this out. We need to figure this out because there is so much simping going on for Jordan Peterson. That is just not reasonable. It's not reasonable.
No, look, jokes aside, I don't think there's any actual romantic intent happening here. I'm sure Dave is happily married, but it's just. It's a weird mentor-mentee relationship that I'm afraid for Dave only goes one way. Like, I picture Jordan Peterson reading this book, because I'm sure he read the book. He is friends with Dave, and kind of at the last, 5 chapters going like, ooh, he sees me as this much of a mentor to him? Like, yeah, we went on tour once, but...
Okay, so it's either unrequited love, more of a Kathy Bates situation... In that, what's that movie?
Misery.
Or have you ever seen was it the sacrificing of a sacred deer or something by the guy that made The Lobster?
Oh no, I know with Colin Firth.
No, Colin Farrell.
No, sorry.
Colin Firth was the King's Speech. It's fine. But yeah,
Killing of a Sacred Deer,
which is a really weird movie, but it's surprise. Jordan Peterson would love it. It's got Christian imagery in it, so it's one of those situations.
I like Yorgos Lanthimos' movies for the most part.
The Lobster's a weird one too. I really like how matter of fact the dialogue is, but and it makes everyone uncomfortable, and you never know really what's going on. But that's not really the point. The point is, Dave's a weirdo, and he needs to figure it out. He needs to figure out his path and take it. You need to tie Jordan Peterson up with consent or against it. You need to figure it out because either Kathy Bates or unrequited. But
at this point, it probably wouldn't be too hard. Jordan's not as spry as he used to be.
Okay, so moving on. He basically talks about how Jordan and Sam Harris had many discussions over the course of the 12 Rules sort of tour. They uploaded, I think, at least one of those that went around a while back. The Sam Harris Jordan Peterson debate. It was shortly before the one with Matt Dillahunty, who is friend of the show. You don't get to say it's not because he actually is.
No, he's one that I would actually consider.
There we go. Okay, so
I'm not against saying people are friends of the show if I actually think they are.
They're friends of the show, or friends of me.
You're very liberal, loosey-goosey with what you define friends of the show as.
Friend of the show. And he says that he started on Sam Harris's side. And then after hearing the arguments from Jordan Peterson, eventually he's just like, you know what? Maybe we do need religion in our life. Not religion, just religion.
Christianity. Specifically.
Yeah, but not like Christianity, just Christianity. You know what I'm saying? So here, where was it? Where was the he doesn't. Well, I want to read the quote, and then we can say whatever we want. This doesn't mean, and this is Dave writing about Jordan. This doesn't mean he wants people to be religious per se. In fact, I never heard him say this. He simply wants people to take their moral codes from an objective reality outside of themselves, which happens to be biblical accounts of those things.
Objective.
Yeah.
Biblical Christianity.
Yeah.
He also says this, and this frustrates me to no end. And I don't mean to do a fallacy, but this is argument from consequences if I've ever seen one. This is terrible. He goes, yes, Enlightenment values are objectively good, but that's not enough. The ideas of reason, individual liberty, and representative government have to have come from somewhere beyond just the human mind. For if they come from us, then they can be taken away by us. Yes, Dave, they are and they can. That's why it's important that we value these things in and of themselves and don't try and say like, oh, they come from God, because then you get complacent and fail to understand that these are all social constructs that we have decided collectively are for the good, for the common good, and therefore are worth preserving. Pretending that these come from some outside, like, esoteric spiritual source is not protecting these things. What protects these things is understanding the thought process behind these and how they affect society and recognizing them as something worth preserving. I hate it. I hate it so much. The fact that he's just like, well, it has to come from God, because if it doesn't, then that means American freedom is just a social construct. Yes! Yes! It is! That was the line that did me in this chapter. That one broke me.
Yep. It's definitely a great place to choose your breaking point. Mine is shortly after that. As we have progressed in terms of freedom, rights, and tolerance, we have regressed in defense of what got us here in the first place. The opposite of those things. Postmodernism, now the main school of thought at so many of our academic institutions, has rejected objective truth in exchange for subjective feelings. No, David, no. It is objectively true that our subjective feelings have dire consequences for our general health. That's it. That's pretty much it. The big shift is just really, if you boil it down to what the culture war shit is really. It is a group of people versus another group of people. The first group of people is like, feelings don't really matter. The second group of people goes, wait, I'm pretty sure feelings matter about stuff. Not to the point where, like, we have to, like, you can't feel gravity away, you can't feel facts away, but you can understand that feelings, mental health, is physical health. Your brain is, of course, a physical organ. It exists. And some people can't wrap their minds around that, which is interesting, because that's the same thing that is the physical thing. Brains are weird. But it's strange to me that we have to have the conversation of, hey, just be nice to each other. And Jordan's like, well, you gotta base it off. I don't want compelled speech, and you gotta base your life off of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, but not in a religious way. And then Dave's interpretation of that is like, well, I wanted to be a transformer when I was a kid, and maybe enlightenment stuff comes from Jesus. Maybe we shouldn't really take into consideration the finite beliefs of mortal beings. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, his worldview is so scrambled. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. He also mentions the Shangri-La, like, which is a totally different, not Christian thing that he's pointing to which I just thought was interesting. I know what he's using it as, but it just bothered me.
He uses that in a reference to saying, like, all these communist states trying to create Shangri-La by replacing God with government. It's like, yeah, that's an in-depth explanation of what happened with the Soviet Union.
Well, I mean, even if when you talk to a leftist, right, someone who is like, capitalism has a lot of problems. God doesn't come up in these conversations, right? You can believe in whatever you want to believe in. The problem is specifically in America that Christian fundamentalism and conservative American politics are like the same thing. Yeah. They use one another to I don't know, I guess strengthen each other, but it's like that's why those two things are talked about in American politics. I have people that think they're witches in my fucking fandom. They're not witches, but I don't give a shit if they believe that. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anybody as long as they're not like avoiding medical advice in favor of some sort of hex. I'm fine with their life choice. It's whatever. In the same way that I don't care if you're a Christian, if you're a decent person to other people. If you're like, you know what, God loves everybody, I love everybody, that's how I'm gonna live my life. Cultural Christians, ones that go to faithless forums and stuff like that. The barbecue people. Anyway, I also
just want to grill.
He says that these old stories are fundamental to our beliefs and stuff like that. He mentions how the little guy can beat the big guy, like David beat Goliath. David was not I know that that's like the pop culture sort of thing. David beat Goliath because God chose him to beat Goliath.
Yeah,
like he had superpowers because of God. That's not a little guy. His stature was smaller.
Sure,
but. God
helped him strike him right here, and it killed him.
It's like saying, I don't know, it's like Superman being shorter than any enemy he punches a hole through. Like
the larger point of that section annoys me a little bit too. He points out multiple examples of sort of biblical stories.
Yeah.
I'll just read. Do you believe the little guy can beat the big guy? Well, beat David and Goliath. It's an eternal belief that generations share. This idea that humans can accomplish anything against the odds is exactly what distinguishes us as humans in the first place. And he has, the idea is basically that cultural narratives help push society and unify society in some way.
Specifically Christian cultural narratives.
Right, but that's what I don't get. It's that it's specifically that and that it has to be religious. Right. We have cultural narratives in the United States that are entirely secular that people understand collectively.
Not without the religious stuff before it.
It's just weird to me that he seems to think, and Jordan Peterson seems to espouse this same thing too in his writings, that cultural cohesion necessitates religious narratives and not just cultural narratives in general.
There's a lot of presupposition that goes on when Jordan Peterson talks about this stuff, and hence Dave, because Jordan Peterson, he's not a historian. There's a reason that historical texts, especially the further back you get, the things that you find are religious texts. Now, it's not always religious text. And by the way, the first named author in history is a woman, for the record. That is true. Her name was Enheduanna, which is kind of a rad name. But I mean, obviously, you have stuff like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is like kind of religious in that it references religious characters. In that you have. I'm just gonna go down a small list of stuff because I immediately thought of Sumerian texts. I immediately thought of like obviously Proto-Indian texts. Any text you get from Egypt will predate the Bible. Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey predate the Bible, and I know again there's going to be some like religious iconography within that, insofar as stories are concerned. But it's not Christian. It's specifically not Christian, right? So you get the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a Sumerian story, which was Iraq. You definitely, I mean, you get like different codes and laws. You get different maxims from Tahotep, which is an Egyptian sort of philosopher. You get different autobiographies. They were doing biographies already. You get, of course, the Book of Death in Egypt. You get, which, by the way, I didn't realize this, but Egyptians genuinely believed in spells, and I didn't realize that. I'm not an Egyptian scholar guy. I didn't do a lot of Egyptian studies, but they believed in spells and shit, which is interesting to me. Which I think, of course, is no different than prayer, to be totally honest. But whatever.
Sure.
Obviously, the Code of Hammurabi, which came well after some of this stuff. You have tons of different creation myths depending on where you come from. Tale of Two Brothers, which is an Egyptian story. That's all Bronze Age stuff. Of course, in the Iron Age, you're going to get some different Akkadian stuff. You're going to get some Babylonian things. Classic antiquity, so we think of like Trojan War type stuff. So literally the Trojan War, Iliad, Odyssey stuff. You also get the Vedas from India at this point. This is all of again, these are all before, and some of these have, like the Trojan War, for instance, does reference Athenian style gods, or I guess Grecian gods. But it's not a story. It's not a religious story. It is a story in general about sort of a romanticized history. And then they have like these hero characters. Achilles is one of them. That is a demigod. This is very common, and it's not like, it's no different than like Superman. To consider this like hardcore religious stories, like is like not correct in the way that like Jordan Peterson likes to push these things. And of course, all of these predate any biblical account. The first biblical stuff you get isn't even like the Book of Hosea and the Book of Amos and the Book of Isaiah and Nahum, which are just Hebrew Bible things. Those come well before the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. And that's right around the time of like the Trojan War stuff. So like, and those are obviously disparate cultures, but this is just to highlight the sort of like dumb, arbitrary Jordan Peterson chose Judeo-Christian values as the ones that stood the test of time, so therefore we need to balance our lives on them. They're not even the first stories that tell those lessons.
Yeah.
So, I don't...
It's also weird to me, considering, like, the Roman Empire picked up Christianity when it was on its way out, and it certainly didn't help. Didn't help them. I don't know. Yeah. It's just weird. I understand the idea that socially speaking, it helps society to share cultural narratives because it kind of keeps people on the same page in terms of value systems, or at least so they have sort of mental, how do I put this?
I guess cultural touchstones for morality.
Yes, cultural touchstones, so at least it aids in communication. Like if I need to say to you or explain a concept to you, I'll often reference some piece of fiction that you and I are both aware of to explain a concept or whatever. So I understand. It's a little bit like that Next Generation episode, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Sure, yeah.
It's a lot like that. That's an extreme version of it because they only speak in cultural idioms. But, like, that kind of stuff helps people understand each other. And I get that. I just don't understand the obsession with it being Christian specifically. It doesn't have to be. And I'd say it largely isn't and hasn't been for quite a while at this point in the United States. Our cultural narratives, and this is going to sound stupid, I'm not trying to be a consumer here, but our cultural narratives are not largely about Jesus. They're about shit like fucking Iron Man, I'm just...
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, think about this. Who has more impact in your life as a secular person, right? Jesus? Like, in just day to day as your communication, not like who has impacted like the formation of the world. Like, I mean, just day to day, who gets brought up more often, Darth Vader or Jesus? Like, really? Probably Darth Vader in a lot. Or obviously, you said Iron Man, Captain America, stuff like that. WandaVision. It's like. And I know that this is, of course, these are like consumer products and stuff, but if you think for a second Christianity wasn't a consumer product, you need to read up just a bit. Because that shit was literally, it was like the only book for a long time. And so people were like, well, I got nothing else to do. I guess I'll read it. And we've been reading it for a long time. It's not like a not entertaining book from time to time, especially the early stuff, and especially the late stuff. Like, kind of the middle is a little icky. But
the first 5 books of the Bible I still think are the best. Honestly.
Yeah.
That thing peaks early and then it is downhill.
Yeah, it definitely has some interesting moments and stuff that nothing I would say is a lesson. I don't think I learned a lot from reading the Bible other than cool cultural things about this ancient society that I thought were fascinating. You know what else was fascinating that I was learning while I was trying, like, just sifting through ancient texts? There's an old Sumerian debate between a bird and a fish, and within it, it's like kind of the bird or the fish looking at the bird and be like, you fly and you yell and you peck at shit and you shit in the courtyard, but like, and then the bird was like, you're a fucking fish, you suck. And but what's fascinating about it is that it mentioned like cultural things that you would not probably never understand unless someone wrote about it in a way like that. Like, specifically, you shit in the courtyard, and then you make the next line was and thus you make the temple courtyard boy sweep the temple yard for longer than he should, or something like that. So now just culturally they had a boy that swept the yards up. Like, that stuff is cool to me. Like
I read Dante's Inferno and I learned more about contemporary Florentinian politics of the time that Virgil.
And you also learned how much Dante stole from Athenian or I guess Hellenistic beliefs. But similarly, the Bible has a lot of these things too, where you get a little bit of the, especially when you start to talk about the church structures. I also learned they made daily bird sacrifices back in the day. And it's like, okay, cool, I guess you sacrifice birds for some reason. But that's not that different from the tribe of that became Jewish people in roughly the same area that also did meat sacrifices, which is fascinating, right? I think these are interesting things. These aren't things to live your life on, though. Don't be burning birds, dude. That's serial killer shit now. Don't be like there's squirrels that hang out on my porch during the spring and summertime. Don't be grabbing squirrels off your porch and dripping their blood on your forehead or whatever they did. Don't do that shit. Okay? Not a good like way to live your life. Similarly, not being a Christian male because Dave Rubin was convinced by Jordan Peterson. Like, what's the point of that? It's really weird. So Dave, by the end of this, is basically like he's had a personal religious awakening. He is no longer identifying as an atheist. He definitely came out on his show and said that he was religious, and so he is now a religious guy.
But see, what's interesting about both his religiosity as well as Jordan Peterson's is that it doesn't even feel like they actually believe the thing.
Yeah.
It's like they think it's utilitarian to act as though they do, and they're relatively open about that. So it's just like, you're not really religious then if you don't really believe these things. You're just using them as moral guides.
It's an aesthetic choice.
So weird. Yeah. It's so bizarre.
Well, because Jordan Peterson is sort of his entire bullshit is like a self-help guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jordan Peterson, from a marketing standpoint, considers, and I don't know that part of me thinks Jordan Peterson is genuine, and part of me thinks he's definitely not genuine, but he's definitely insidious either way. And aesthetically, if you are saying conservative things and you have the veneer of Judeo-Christian like backdrop on your words, it's going to resonate wider with a conservative audience. But if you also don't take a full step into the religious conservatism, you will also be able to get people in the center easier. And it seems very tactical from a guy like Jordan Peterson. I don't think Dave is aware of that kind of shit,
No.
Dave is. I feel like Dave is literally the only guy, and not because his last name is Rubin. He literally is the most perfect like idea of a rube in my head. Right? He's just sort of like wandering.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have his own thoughts. I don't know. I think that this is the end of this chapter that I really even need to talk about. If there's anything else, there's lots of different stuff that we could pick apart, but I think it's a little repetitive at this point. Where just like every single line is like at a certain point, just stop it. Just stop.
I just think it's an outdated way of thinking.
Yeah.
And again, this is going to sound cringe as fuck, but I nonetheless think it's true. Look how people communicate. Look at what the topic of memes are. Most of the time, it's not about Jesus. It's like a gif of The Office or something.
Yeah.
People's cultural contexts are not defined by their religion anymore. They're often defined by other culture that they indulge in, whether it's, an art house film that they enjoy and talk about with their friends, or whether it's, the wet ass P word song, I don't know.
Well, you see, women don't get to have wet ass P words.
Did you see they played that at the Grammys and they censored the word bucket?
Why bucket?
I don't know. Mop was fine. Bucket, though, not okay.
As a P word enthusiast, I'm fine, like in whatever state that they end up in. Okay, and frankly, it's just for me, it's an honor to engage with a wet ass P word. So, yeah. So thank you.
One day I'll have one, and that'll be a good day.
It's weird to have that such a conflict in my head right now of like supporting you and also never wanting to hear about it again. So yeah, that's this one.
You're gonna when I get the bottom surgery, you're gonna hear about nothing but my new vagina for 3 years.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
I'm not getting. No, you're not gonna see it.
I don't want to see your vagina.
I want to see my. I don't need to see it. I just need to have it.
I don't need to see it. I just need to. I feel like you'd want to look at it. I don't want to look. I hope it goes. I hope it goes great. I hope it's the best vagina ever, dude. Like I don't want to see any of your
I don't want
goddamn
you to
groins.
see anything.
Not
I don't
you.
want you
I'm talking
to.
about all my friends now. I'm just making sure. I'm just collecting everybody. I don't see any of your fucking junk. None of them. Okay? If we're not friends, I don't care. It's weird. That's a weird thing. I think that's what happens.
OnlyFans coming circa 2024.
Sure. And I wish you well in that endeavor, but yeah.
It's okay. I'll get hot by then.
I don't want to see. That's a weird. I think that's a bell curve. If I don't have any relation to you, I'll look at your junk, sure. But if I'm your friend and you're in my inner circle, that falls away. And then if you get even closer to me, then I want to see it again. It's a parabola of wanting to see your junk.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna be spending tens of thousands of dollars on it. Do you buy a Porsche and leave it in the garage all the time?
No.
Someone's got to look at this thing once I get it.
You're damn right. I'm all for it. I just thought it was interesting how my sensibilities about junk go. Anyway. The next one is called Embrace Parenthood.
That's going to be a short video because I don't have anything to say about it.
I have a couple things to say, but mostly it's Dave cringe and not anti-parenthood. I don't care if you want to have babies. I don't give a shit. Sneak peek for that. You go ahead and have kids, guys. Or don't. There you go. So you can follow me at Actual Corn. It changed.
You can follow me. You can follow me at Hannah Reloaded on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that consistency.
We can do the things. They won't let me.
I'm sorry someone took Actual Jake from you.
He doesn't even use it.
That's a shame.
He won't answer me either. He's definitely dead. He died from COVID for sure.
Can you contact Twitter? When's the last time he tweeted?
Let me see. I'm sure this motherfucker. Where are you at? Where are you fucking at? Account suspended. I don't fucking know. Probably some sort of asshole. No, they won't let me have it.
I mean, if the account is suspended.
I've contacted them. I don't know. They haven't.
Okay.
Give me it. Anyway. So yeah.
Hashtag justice for corn.
You can find me at Actual Jake on Twitch. We do a lot of stuff. Also on the 18th, I am doing the world's greatest internet show, which is apparently High Level Ideas with the Surf. So be there on the 18th. I don't have a link for it. Just look it up. That was not helpful. 2 people are going to be like, take the energy to do that. That's fine. That's okay. Should be a good time. I'm going to be on there with Vadim, friend of the show. I'm going to be on there with Amy C3 and who was the other person on that call? Well, obviously Lance from the Surfs. And what's your name? David Dole? Who I do not know. Possible new friend of the show in the future. Future friend of the show. There we go. Anyway, so yeah, we'll be doing that stuff.
That's. I was just trying to close out. That's it.
Okay.
Go and click on other videos.
Be fruitful.
Live long and prosper. There's another cultural thing that people know.
Do the thing. By the way, you may have noticed I have nailies. That's fine. Just don't worry about it. That was
from the sleepover birthday party that all of us had for me.
Good time.
Which was nice. Thank you. There's cute pics of it on Twitter.
Anglerfish onesie was pretty goddamn good, I gotta say.
That was good.
You did a good job. Anyway, love your faces.